Today is December the 16th, 2022. My name is Tanya Finchum, and I'm with Oklahoma State University with the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program. With me today is Charles Bradley, Automation Systems Supervisor and longtime employee of OSU, over 40 years. And he is now in the Energy Management, Sustainability, and Automation Systems group, which is within the Energy Services, which is in the Facilities Management. Did I get all that right?
Yes.
Here at OSU. We are in the central plant on the OSU Stillwater campus, and this interview will be part of the Stories from Oklahoma State University Oral History Collection, and will focus on Charles' career, including his role in the Energy Management Program and his whole career, really. So the Energy Management Program began in 2007. So thank you for meeting with me today. Before we get into your work, let's learn a little bit about you. Start wherever you like.
Okay, I came up here in 1975 to go to school, and I from Tulsa. I grew up in Tulsa.
Okay.
And I came up here. I went to school for 2 years, and then I ended up getting a job with, at the time it was a physical plant, and I took a job there in the supply department, and I worked there for maybe a year or two, and then I was recruited into the HVAC department to work on controls because we only had one guy doing it at the time. And so I worked with him, and he trained me up, and then he moved on to Tulsa to work in that field in a different area. And so I was kind of the only person doing it at that time for a period. And then we ended up hiring a couple of new guys that I trained. And in 1981, I went over to Tulsa to take a job in the controls field. And I worked there for 2 years, and due to the economy being what it was, work was hard to find, so I ended up coming back here, and I went back to work at the physical plant as a control technician, and then we worked out of the HVAC department at that time, and
we should probably say what that is.
The heating and air conditioning department.
Okay. And what is a control person do?
A control person, in our equipment, we have large air handlers in all the buildings, and there are controls that operate those air handlers, the thermostats, control valves, the controllers that make sure everything's working. Okay. And so I worked on those controls. Well, I've worked on them ever since. So
while you were here, when you were a student, were you in engineering? I mean,
no, I was kind of getting into computer business back in, this is back in 75, so it was a whole different world we lived in. But it got to the point where, I got married, and I had a child, and it just I wasn't able to afford to keep going to school. So
that happened, yes.
So anyway, I came back in 1983, and I've worked doing more or less the same thing up to today, other than I became supervisor here several years back.
Okay.
But
And before you came supervisor, had the job entailed much different through the years?
It's evolved quite a bit because back then everything was, the control systems were mostly pneumatic, which means that you had an air compressor driving all the valves and actuators and all that sort of thing. And it's evolved over the years into it's more electronic controls, electric and electronic, as opposed to the pneumatic that we had back then. So it's changed quite a bit. When I first came back in 1983, they had just put in a building automation system, which is basically a central computer that is connected to all the buildings and allowed us to monitor and somewhat control things remotely. So that was just getting started back in 1983. And
so almost 40 years ago then.
Yes, it's been a long time.
Gosh, okay.
And so anyway, I kind of got in on the ground floor of that, and at that time, there was an automation systems group which consisted of like 3 people, and they operated the central computer and did the hardware connections out in the field, and I was still in the HVAC department. And at that point, it started blending together, and they ended up making a group that did all that, putting us together basically. So it gave me a chance to get involved in the automation end of it rather than just the control end of it, because that was at the very beginning of that type of system. And
how did you learn to do the advanced stuff?
Just any way I could. I worked with people that had been dealing with it, and I've taken classes over the years, and I mean there's been a lot of training over the years necessary to kind of get up to speed and know how it all worked and that sort of thing. But that's kind of how that went. So.
Well, has the department itself grown or shrunk?
Well, when I started out, again, I was the only person doing the control end of it, and then we had the automation department, which there's, again, I think 3 people, and we've grown. We combined, and at this point we have 7 technicians doing what we've always done, and it's just more of we've kind of moved into the automation end of it, which has just added complexity to the job essentially. But it's just evolved quite a bit since I started. So
a few more headaches, huh?
Oh yeah. A big learning curve, but again, it's been an interesting ride. So
can you do some of it remotely from home, or do you have to be in this building? Or
at this point, yes, we can do some stuff from home if we have if we take a laptop home. Mm-hmm. It used to, the original automation system we had was all on campus. There was no external ability to get in, so it had to be done from here. But things have evolved to the point where yes, you can do a lot from home.
Well, where is the computer, and where is it? Where was it from in the
originally at the physical plant administration building. There's a mini computer, a digital mini computer, which was, you've probably seen the old reel-to-reel, tapes and all that. Well, that's what that was, and so it was localized in that building, and we had to have wires running to everything out in the field. So there's a lot of wires, and we've we've gotten to the point where it's a lot more internet based, so the communications are over the internet rather than direct wires, and so we've gotten away from that. And so, but the internet's grown. You know, it didn't exist back then, and now it does. So
I'm imagining there's wires all over campus.
there's a lot of wires on campus.
And you have to check before you dig.
Yeah, but again, we've moved away from that, you know, now to where it's just you plug it in the wall, and you know, there's a lot of wires in the buildings themselves, but there used to be a lot of wires in the ground going out to all those buildings, and we moved away from that. So that's a good thing.
That's a good thing, yes. So initially it was called the physical plant, right? And then it changed to...
It was physical plant services, and here, I don't remember the year, but they had a major overhaul of the physical plant system, and it became facilities management at that point. And they kind of reorganized everything into a different management scheme from what it was. So they, at one time, the physical plant would just do all the work that needed to be done on campus. Well, they changed that to now they have zones where you have a leader of each zone, and it's broken up into 3 zones now. And so you have a manager and a supervisor and an assistant supervisor over each zone, and so they have like a third of the campus here and a third here, and, you know, so they've broken it up to where there's the physical plant isn't over everything. It's, well, technically it is, but it's not one person over the whole campus. It's several managers, you know, overseeing their individual areas. And so that's been a big change.
So they get familiar with their zone instead of having...
Yeah, well, it's not as big of a job for one person to manage the whole campus. It's broken up into, there's more managers now that can spend more time on the specific problems of that zone, as opposed to the one guy, you know, trying to do it all from the physical plant.
And are you assigned a certain zone yourself?
No, we actually cover the whole campus. So we're not part of the zoning in that, because our job is so technical, we've had to maintain basically running the whole campus, because there was no way for a zone to hire in people that know how to do this job. What we found is we train people to come into this job. We don't find somebody that knows it, and you know, and we can just put them to work. It's technical enough where, and there's not many people that do this type of work. So it's, and you know, the contractors doing this work are making $150 an hour. Well, they don't pay that here. So there's no way to hire those people to come here to work. So we pretty much had to just learn the job and then train in-house to get people to where they need to be.
Well, you've liked it well enough to stay with it?
Yes, I've enjoyed the job quite a bit. It's, you know, it's a niche job that there's not many people that do it, and, you know, it's just been I'm interested in technical things, and so it's been a very technical job. But I've just enjoyed being in Stillwater, and you know, I could have probably gone to Oklahoma City or Tulsa and made a bunch more money, but I like Stillwater, and I prefer to live here. So.
Well, and let's back up, and then we'll catch back up. Why did you choose OSU to begin with when you were going to go to college?
Well, I wanted to be in state, and I went to OU and checked it out, and I came here and checked it out, and they're different places, and I preferred this environment as opposed to the OU environment. So my sister came here. She was a year ahead of me, and so we had conversations and just chose to come here. I prefer Stillwater over Norman, and so
orange over red. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, at the time I didn't know one from the other, but just the first impression, I just liked Stillwater more, so that's why I chose it.
Did you live in a dorm your first year?
I did. I lived in a dorm, and
which one?
I lived in Bennett Hall.
Bennett Hall, okay.
And that was back in the day of you had a radiator heater and a box fan if you wanted air conditioning. So it was a whole different world back then. We always looked fondly on the people that lived in Wilhelm or Kerr because they had air conditioning and it was all modern high rise and whatnot. But
you'd have to do some of your studying in the library. It was air conditioned.
Yes, it was, and so that you had a place to go if you wanted to be cool.
If you wanted.
But.
And did Bennett have a cafeteria at that time?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's at that time every dorm had its own cafeteria. They've kind of changed it up, and now there's places you can go to eat. But at that time, every place had their own little cafeteria, and so you didn't have to leave the building to go eat, which was kind of nice.
And was Bennett Hall the type that you'd have to go down the hall to the restroom?
Oh yeah.
Shower and all
you
that?
shared a restroom with everybody on the floor, but that's how it was.
That's how it was.
You dealt with it. So, yeah.
Did you meet your wife here?
I did.
Okay.
I met her. She was a neighbor actually, and we got to know each other. And things went on from there.
So from the very get-go, from your first day or two on the job and your first job period, what was a typical day like for you?
Typical day, we would receive a series of piece of paper that were work orders to go out and resolve issues. People would call in and we'd get a work order issued to us, and so we would have a handful of those, and we'd go out and go from one to the next and resolve the issues that needed to be resolved. Yeah. So.
Was it an 8-hour a day, 40-hour a week?
Yes, it was a standard 8 to 5, 8 to 4:30. I think at one point it was 8 to 5, and you had an hour for lunch, but they changed that up to be a half hour, and you got off a half hour early. So
that's still the way it is today.
That's the way it is today. So,
did you have to come in on weekends if there was something going on? They would call you and say, "This is a problem. Come fix it now."
Well, what we had was we had a standby.
Mm.
So somebody was assigned for a week at a time to come in on after-hour calls, and we rotated that amongst a number of employees. And so every 6-8 weeks, you'd be on standby, and you'd be responsible for any after-hour calls, and you'd come in and either fix it yourself or point it to another, either a plumber or an electrician or whatever the problem was. So, we kind of evaluated and did what we could, or again, reassigned it to somebody else.
Did you have a beeper, or did you just call on the phone?
No, at that time, they would just call us on the phone. It was before cell phones, so
yeah. They
just had our home phone number, and they'd call and we'd come in and deal with whatever we had to deal with.
So at what point, or do you even remember what point you decided this is going to be my career? I'm going to make it here.
Oh, I don't know that I just never really thought about leaving just because I enjoyed the work and it was challenging and you're learning something new all the time. And I mean, it never is stagnant. You're always learning something new, you know. The systems we put in and whatnot, they're always evolving. So, you know, you just try and keep up with it. But no, I never really considered leaving just because I enjoyed the town and the job, and you know, I was good to go.
So like 10 years in, your title probably had changed by that point, and work may have varied a little.
Well, again, due to the inclusion of the automation system, we got combined with that group, and so that, you know, it wasn't strictly just working on an individual control system on an air handler, because they integrated in the automation system on top of that. So you're fixing the controls, but you're also dealing with the automation system that was tied to it all. And so, and that gave you remote viewing capability and some control capability remotely. But no, I really never felt the need to go anywhere. The idea of traveling every day on a job, that's what it would have entailed if I'd worked in this field for a private company. I would have been traveling all the time, and I kind of like the 8 to 5, you know, 5 days a week kind of deal. And it was a secure job, and it had good benefits, and so it was just the right fit for me at the time. So,
was there a particular building on campus that caused the most headaches?
Well, over the years, yes, I always ended up getting the newest, most complex buildings just because I was senior guy, and there was always problems involved in new buildings, but you know, I dealt with Noble Center. There was a lot of issues with it, you know, and it was you know, they built 2 of the buildings right off, and then they added 2 more over the years, and it seemed like there was always issues on a new building. It seemed like we would get through the warranty period and then go in and fix all the things that we needed to fix. So, but you know, they all had their issues, but we dealt with them.
I don't know this, but I had heard that the Noble had plans for louvers.
They have louvers. They just failed early on. What they had was in the Noble A building, there's a majority of the building is glass. There's the whole south end of the building is glass, and there were louvers put in so that if there was a hailstorm or the sun was shining too bright or whatever, those louvers could be closed. Well, it wasn't long after, you know, we got the building that those failed miserably, and the expense of fixing them would have been tremendous. So they've been sitting the same way for 20-something years, probably.
Well, I don't know. Someone had said that they were there in order to be efficient, you know, like you said, you know, cool or heat, but it didn't work out that way.
It didn't work out that way. Again, the mechanisms that it required to operate, we tried to keep them functional, but there's no reasonable way to do it. And so they ended up just kind of being in a set position since then. So it was funny because you know, supposedly that was in a time of trying to put out energy saving buildings, and then you have all this glass, you know. The question of how that was saving money, I don't know. Animal science was put in about that time, and during the designing process, they designed it around using the lights for heat. So the excess heat off the lights they would reuse and heat the building. And somewhere in the design process, they changed from incandescent lights to fluorescent lights. And needless to say, the fluorescent lights don't put off much heat at all. And so it kind of messed up the whole design. And we fought that for a long time. We had to do a lot of re-engineering and compensating for those issues. So that was a building that was a problem early on.
An added expense.
Oh, an amazing amount. I mean, it was going to be a real energy saver, and it turned out not so much. But that's.
Did they ask your all's advice before they got to that stage?
No, they never asked our advice.
They don't even now?
Well, we get to review the plans and stuff now. But at the time, there were other people doing that. So, we didn't have a lot of input. In fact, there was a point there where they didn't want input because we kept finding things that weren't going to work, and that dragged everything out, so they quit asking us after a while. And so it goes.
And they never come back and say, yes, you were right.
No, never that. But they did finally institute a group, long-range planning, that now oversees all the new construction, and it's their job to review everything. And there was a gap there between, when that was changed over, and so there was a period of time where we weren't getting a lot of oversight. We did what we could, but they finally instituted the long-range planning group, and now they're responsible for all new construction, and they deal with it through the warranty period, and then they turn it over to us, and we maintain it or fix what's needed or whatever we need to do. So.
And has the computer shrunk since
a tremendous amount. Again, and we had a room that had a computer in it at one time, and now it's all on the laptop. Or we now have servers that everything goes to, and then we interface with the server to get on and see what's going on.
So early on, it probably wasn't in your job. The punch cards, that was probably a different.
No, that punch cards, when I was going to school, that was how you
coded.
That's how you'd write your program, and each line was on a punch card that you typed out, and it punched holes in the card, and then you had a stack of cards that represented all those lines of code that you wrote, and then you put that in the IBM compiler, and it would compile all those into a program, and then they would use that to run the program.
Well, where was that on campus? If you were taking a class in that, where did you have to go to do?
That was at Math Sciences. That's where the computer science department was at that time. I'm not sure where, it's spread out all over now, but
where it is.
It was a lot more limited computer time back then. I mean, everything was a mainframe at that time, and so there were no or very few little computers, that evolved until where we are today, where everything can be done on a laptop. But wasn't that way back then. So.
Well, in your many years here, you've seen other buildings renovated.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I guess Wilhelm? No.
No, they tore down
Willard.
Willard was done. Murray has been done.
Gallagher.
Gallagher's been done. Yeah, there's been a lot of upgrades to existing buildings.
Would you have something to do with some of that?
Only when they were done and they turned it over to us.
Okay.
So, we were responsible once it got out of the warranty period. So.
Well, this may not be in your department too, but I'm curious who goes, all the clocks change. Is that something that's done automation?
Yes, it's done automatically now. At the time, back when I first started, and for a period of time afterwards, all scheduling of all air handlers and equipment was done. There was a little time clock on each device, and so every time it was daylight savings time, you'd have to go to every one of those clocks and reset the clock. And so it was very manual back then. It was a lot of manual labor, to achieve certain things. But again, it's better now. we can schedule now from a laptop, so it makes life a lot easier.
And do you remember any like severe weather events that impacted your worker?
Yes, I remember distinctly one Christmas. We had a blizzard blow through, and it was extremely cold. And back then we didn't have an automation system, so everything was just standalone, and we had all kinds of coils freeze up and units go down and whatnot due to the intensely cold weather. And I was the only one on standby, so I was running around doing my best to try and, do what I could to, minimize the damage and minimize the problems caused by that cold. But yeah, that was a long week that year. But yeah, we had a lot more problems early on. I mean, because everything was standalone and you didn't know what was happening. Right now we can monitor all the temperatures in the air handlers and in the spaces, but back then we couldn't. So you didn't know about a problem until water was running down the hallway, and so we'd react to that. But we've come a long way, and everything works pretty well to the point of bad weather doesn't affect us near like it used to. We were so short on people, it was tough to maintain everything at the time, and so we did the best we could with what we had, But we've come a long way, and now things are a lot more less worrisome come bad weather, put it that way. So.
Oh, it's going to get cold, and when it gets really cold, and the ice and all of that too. And I don't know if Stillwater had a tornado. Has one come through campus before?
Oh, absolutely. It's been a lot of years, but yeah, back, probably late 80s or early 80s, maybe late 70s. Yeah, we had one come through, and it didn't do direct damage. It caused issues, but it didn't come right through the middle of campus or anything. But it came through Stillwater, and caused us some grief.
Okay.
But
I wasn't sure.
we haven't in a long time. Knock on wood.
So your job mainly deals with heating and air.
Correct.
And what else?
You
You said water, so that's from the chill. I don't know, my lack of knowledge.
Well, what we have is a chill water plant, which we're sitting in right now. They make steam and chill water in this plant, and then they circulate it out throughout the campus through pipes. At that time, we still had some local chillers in individual buildings. We had, the library had a big chiller that took care of several surrounding buildings, Whitehurst, Mass Science, several buildings. And at that time, certain buildings had their own chillers and boilers. Well, that's, over the years, that's gone more to a centralized plant like we got today, where we just pipe it out to each building, and that way the people that run the plant deal with operation, of the chillers and the boilers and whatnot, and so it's changed. We deal with all the chill water control, the steam, the hot water control, everything that has to do with temperature in the building. Okay. And conditions in the building. We deal with airflows. If there's too much air blowing on someone, we would adjust it. If it's too cold,
you get complaints.
We deal with whatever we got. If somebody was uncomfortable, we would be the first to know, and we would go out and try and resolve their problem any way we could. And
hard to make everybody happy, isn't it?
No, and back then, because they implemented early on some guidelines for temperatures. And of course, up to that point, it was, the thermostat was set on whatever somebody wanted it set on. And then when we implemented an energy management program, it was determined, okay, we're going to do things like cycle the units on and off. At one time, they just ran however long that little time clock on there said. Well, that was not easily adjusted. And so it was determined, once we got the automation system in that could turn things on and off, we started implementing scheduling on the equipment so that we could save a little bit of energy as well as, keep people happy. And so that happened, and once you start making set points be within certain guidelines, there's always people going to complain, but we eventually got them educated to accepting, what the guidelines were.
I know in our department, the air handler goes off right at 5. Mm-hmm. Right at 5.
Yeah, well, again, energy is really expensive, and we just little things like finding a water leak somewhere, or this unit's running 20 degrees hotter than it should. Those things all add up, and so we've made a pretty strong effort to try and cut back anywhere we could without affecting the comfort in the space. And so that's been an ongoing battle. In fact, that's when the energy managers came into the picture. That was their job. Was they're supposed to go out and educate the people in the buildings on what the guidelines were, and if there's a problem, you discuss it with them, and they can make changes if necessary. And so we were we did the work, but they determined, okay, this needs to be done to save energy. And so they're the ones that are responsible for setting the schedules on everything and finding ways to save energy any way we could. And that's been a pretty successful program.
They didn't have to worry about the bottom line.
That was the whole thing, is the bottom line, and how much energy costs were going up, and it was necessary to get a handle on that. And
I think there were 5 of them hired at that contract.
Yes, it was a contract, and they hired 5 energy managers, and that's what we have now.
Do you remember what the reception was like when that first started?
Well, people
Change is not
Well, I think, see, because that was a contract from an outside firm that came in and proposed we do this, and if we follow these steps, I think they were going to benefit from the savings for the first however many years. And so any savings that we're seeing, they would benefit from. I think one of the problems back then was, for them, was the fact that we had been working on the same issues to save energy for a while. And the company that came in and did that, they were used to dealing with like local school systems, you know, the high school, the junior high, and they typically had no provisions whatsoever for saving energy. And so it was pretty easy to, okay, we're going to schedule your equipment off and that'll save so much, and we're going to, you know, adjust some of these temperatures and do this and that. And it was a notable decrease in energy usage. Well, I think they thought they could come in here and do the same thing, but we've been working on that previous to them coming in, and so a lot of the things that they took for granted that they could save energy on, we'd already been doing, you know, like scheduling air handlers off, you know, at 5 o'clock instead of 10 o'clock. And so I think they had to scramble a little bit to find those savings, because they were, you know, coming in assuming they could find some easy savings, and we'd taken a lot of that out of the picture because we've been trying to do it as well. And but they have done a lot of good work and found a lot of areas where, you know, things can be improved. So it's been a beneficial program. I just don't think they gained as much as they thought they would at first, you know, because we've been trying to do the same thing before they got there. So
now it's harder and harder to find those.
It is, and you know, you really got to scramble for, you know, savings. I mean, you know, we got guys going out and looking around for just leaks in underground pipes. You know, I mean, what they do is they monitor the energy usage, and if there's any anomalies, they'll go out and try and figure out why those anomalies are happening. Because a lot of times you may have this air handler broke and it has to run 24/7 until we can get it fixed. Mm-hmm. Well, you're going to have that extra energy usage over the period where normally it wouldn't be using that much energy. Well, they have to, you know, document that, and because they're trying to figure out if there's anomalies in the billing process, they need to figure out why. And if we're wasting energy over and above last year, they need to go out and figure out, you know, why are we using more energy? And we work closely with them to help them analyze that and try and figure out, you know, why there might be changes in energy usage. Because we do the actual work in the buildings, and they just kind of keep an eye on the energy usage, the bills, all that stuff. And so between us, we can usually figure out if there's something unusual going on. And
they don't have to know how a particular thing works.
No, and they didn't at all early on. They've come a long way as to knowing how the systems work, but they, you know, they didn't really, because there's a lot of different kinds of air handlers and the way things operate, and, you know, and it took a while for them to kind of understand the process.
Learning curve like the rest of us.
Yeah, but, you know, again, they've come a long way, and
I read somewhere it's like 60 million in cost avoidance.
Right.
Over that span of time.
Yes, and again, that's all on them. I mean, we help implement any changes or whatever.
Well, it's a team effort.
It is. It really is.
But I mean, even us adjusting our behavior.
Yeah, yeah,
has helped. Or,
yeah. So, and again, part of their job was to go out and try and get the people to understand what we're trying to do, you know. So it may be a little cool in the morning. Well, it'll warm up and we're saving, you know, money that we may not have otherwise, you know.
and if you plan to work on the weekend, bring an extra coat, huh?
Yes, well, and it's so many of the professors and whatnot, you know, they just assume that it's okay for you to turn on an air handler because they're going to be there in their office by themselves, maybe the only person in the building. But, well, you're running this air handler and using all this energy for one person. And that's, they've been most instrumental in being able to put their foot down and say, no, you know, if one person doesn't, you know, that's not what, I mean, we don't want to necessarily turn on the air handler for one person, you know, and it takes those kind of people to go out and talk to the people and explain to them. And I mean, their part of their job was energy educators.
Okay.
And so, you know, part of their job is to go out and talk with the people and explain, okay, here's the deal, here's how it's going to be. You need to, you know, adapt to that because we're not going to adapt to you anymore. I mean, in the past, that's how it was. But, you know, now it's, here's the guidelines. We're going to try and stay within those unless there's a real good reason to get outside that. It's like here next week, it's supposed to get real cold towards the end of the week. Well, they're trying to figure out, okay, well, what units do we need to keep on to keep running to maintain the building's temperature without causing any damage or anything, you know, as a result of it being real cold and nobody being here, you know. I mean, it's easy to turn off an air handler, but if it's 6 degrees outside, you may not want to do that.
Water pipes, yeah.
It may be 20 degrees in the building here, you know, if you're not careful, if you don't keep an eye on that. So they're real good about, you know, scheduling and making provisions for, you know, different weather conditions.
So each building has, or I guess used to have a boiler room or a mechanical room or.
Well, they all have
whatever.
mechanical rooms. It's just at one time, a lot of the, like the chill water production was localized to a particular building. They'd have an individual chiller for that building where you'd circulate the chill water through the building from that chiller. Well, we've moved away from that plan and now everything's centralized with the main plant and we just circulate it out to the buildings as opposed to make it within the building.
I think with those individual ones, you have to worry about squirrels.
Yeah, and you have to worry about if this breaks, you need people to work on it, and we need a lot more people back then to work on those type of equipment, you know, and we've moved away from that, so now it's more localized here at the plant, and they have their own crews.
So that unit that's beside the library on the west, no, on the east side, is that?
In the basement of the library.
No, outside, the outside one.
I think that may have been cooling towers for the chiller, which has been removed now. But again, you had a big chiller in the library that would take care of the library as well as some of the surrounding buildings. That was an example of that.
Okay.
So.
And they recently do something on top of the Nancy Randolph Davis building.
They're dealing with some. There's some fans, some exhaust fans that are connected to the fume hoods, and we have a laboratory area over there, and we had some failures on the motors, and so they had to get a crane and pull those off and bring them down and send them off to be repaired, and think they're scheduled to put them back maybe Friday.
They were making a lot of noise. I remember it.
Yeah, well, it's a major deal, but if it fails, either you work on it there or you work on it where you can get to it. And in that case, they had to get a crane and pull it off the roof and get it sent off to be repaired.
Well, that'll add to the budget, huh?
Oh yeah. Well, cost of doing business.
It is.
So.
Any particular stories that dealing with Gallagher Iba?
Not really. We really haven't. I mean, early on we worked over there, but they ended up getting their own crew, and so they maintain their own equipment now, which they need to because it's a big facility, and they need to, keep on top of their own stuff.
Is that the same thing for the stadium?
Yeah, the stadium and the Gallagher are basically run by the same group.
Okay.
They have their own people over there, so we'll assist them if they need it. But for quite a while they've maintained their own equipment because they pay for their own stuff since they are an income producing group.
Yeah.
They kind of deal with their own bills and work on their own stuff. So
that helps, I guess, you guys a little bit.
Oh, we're glad of it. It's a good thing that we're not, because again, you could spend all your time over there. It's a pretty big facility over there.
So you mentioned air handlers with filters, and during COVID, did you have to do anything in particular?
Yeah, they made an attempt to do what could be done. They started. They upgraded the filtration systems to a higher grade of filters to help hopefully offset the spread of anything. In fact, we spent quite a bit going through and reevaluating the filter systems and upgrading them to what was recommended in the industry. As much as we could. There was limitations on what we could go to, just because if you go with too much filtration, the air handler may not be up to sucking that much air through there, and you lose air going to the building, and it causes issues where you can't maintain your operation. So we did what we could up to the point where we couldn't do anymore. And so, yeah, we made an attempt to, we started bringing in a lot more outside air and circulating air for longer, and just an attempt to, we were kind of following guidelines that were put out there by the industry, and we did what we could to, help offset the problems.
Well, how do you keep up with what's going on in the industry? Is that part of your job, or expect something else to filter down?
Well, we work closely with contractors that put in a lot of the equipment, and it's a forever ongoing thing where you gotta keep up. These days, just your software updates, is a major deal. And once you update this, well, now this isn't going to work, and so you got to go back and upgrade this in order to make it work with the new stuff, and so there's always an ongoing evaluation process on what needs to be done. But again, we work pretty closely with the contractors that put in a lot of the equipment, because they have to be really on top of it as well, because if something gets behind, they can't afford to be behind. They got to be cutting edge all the time. So mainly just working with different contractors, keep an eye on industry news and that sort of thing.
surf the internet a little bit.
Yeah, just see what's going on in the world and see how that applies to us. So, but it's been interesting. Like I say, a learning process.
Is it hard to get, like if someone quits or switches departments or whatever, is it hard to get someone to come in? And
It's not hard to get somebody. It's hard to get somebody that's worthy of the position, because in our department we have very little turnover. The people who come work in this job typically are real happy with the job and they're not going to leave. We don't have much turnover at all, but finding somebody to replace a person who's been here for 20 years, typically they don't know much anything, because we're not hiring somebody in that's been doing this job. We're hiring someone who we see as trainable, and the more technically savvy person we can get in, the more likely they're going to be conducive to training, in this equipment, because it's pretty complex, because we do the software as well as the hardware. So it's most universities don't have a department like we have. They usually depend on outside contractors. So, we're kind of unique in that area. Just we're given access to software that other customers wouldn't be allowed to use, just because they understand we're capable of doing the work and won't screw up what they did, and have to come in and fix it. So, we just got a very technically proficient crew.
sounds like you never could retire. You have to.
Well, I'm still here, so
you have to keep staying, and you can't. It seems like it's too much to have a handbook or a manual or whatever. This is how this job is done.
Well, there's no way to do that. There's so many different things. We have so many different types of systems, and we have certain people that specialize in certain systems that the other guys in the shop may not be able to work on. And so, usually somebody steps up and agrees to learn a new system, and then they'll be the lead on that type of work. But again, it's hard to find somebody off the street that can do the job, so we typically have to train them, and that's a several-year process.
Like an apprentice?
Totally like that, because again, the last guy we hired, he came from the company that we work with. That's the first time we've had somebody that was actually a trained individual who was out there making real money, but they wanted to get more of an 8 to 5 type job, because they're known to travel all over the state, and tomorrow you may be in Bixby, or you may be down in Altus, or because their region is all over the state. So and some of those people, it's a high pressure job, and so we were lucky in that our latest guy was willing to come here and work, and again, he stepped right in and knows how to do everything. So most everything, I should say. There's a little more to train him on, but we were fortunate in that. But that's typically not the case.
Yeah.
So it's hard to find people, again, and you don't know what that person is like until you hire them and work with them for a while. So hopefully you're not disappointed down the road. You go, oh, we made the wrong choice here, but unless they quit, then they're going to be here for a long time, and so that's why we choose very carefully.
So there needs to be someone that can handle multiple things, and
they have to know everything from how to operate a laptop to work in the IP department, or the IT department rather, to knowing mechanical systems, to knowing electrical systems. I mean, it's at the very broad brush as to what we do. And so we may hire somebody in that's really good on computers, but they know nothing about air conditioning, they know nothing about heat, they know nothing about, controls, they know nothing about all the stuff we do. So, like I say, they may know a little slice of what they're going to end up doing, once they get up and running. But again, we choose carefully. So.
Yeah, you've learned a lot over these years. Does any of that translate to your home, your house? Is it running?
Actually not. I get that a lot. Can you come work on my air conditioner at home? And it's like, that's not what we work on. The HVAC department, those people would be more likely to know how to fix a home unit than we would. I mean, I say that because we work on so many things, we can usually figure it out. But that's not the emphasis of our job, is to work on that air conditioning unit outside that's not working. Again, we probably can figure it out, but that's not what we do daily.
You can diagnose it if something's wrong at your house, and then
usually
get someone else to do it.
Well, honestly, most of us probably can work on it, but that's not what we do here.
Okay.
It's just a difference in, window unit compared to a air handling unit. It's just not the same.
Not the same.
And so we don't deal with Freon. So anything that uses Freon falls under the HVAC department,
Okay.
because we just we're using chill water and steam or hot water to achieve what other systems use electric heat and Freon to do. So
Okay.
It's just kind of two branches of the same. You're in the heating and air area, but they're just different, And so that's why they have an HVAC department and us, because we have two distinctly different, jobs.
Okay. And your steam, the old plant's right across Hall of Fame.
Right.
How does it compare to this new one?
When they put in the equipment here, it seems to me it's more commercial rather than industrial. The chillers over there, I think I don't know when they built the plant, but we had the same chillers all that time, and they would just maintain them. They were designed to be pulled apart and rebuilt and cleaned up and just kept going, whereas over here they're using more commercial stuff that I don't think is quite as long lived,
As durable.
Yeah, it's just, the old plant had a lot more expensive equipment, I think, but it lasted longer, But by the same token, it lived to the end of its life, and that's why we had to proceed to a new plant, just and new equipment, because that one was reaching the end of its life, and they just went a little bit different route with some of the equipment, but it does the same thing. I'm not sure if it'll last 40 years, like the old stuff did, but time will tell.
Time will tell. I was reading this building that we're in was dedicated in 2018. Does that sound right?
That sounds right, yeah.
Broke ground before that, but dedicated in 2018. Have you been in? Your office has been in here from the beginning.
We moved in when they opened the building.
Okay.
That was at the point that we went from working under the FM designation to energy services.
Okay.
Our group was basically put under new management or different management at at that time, and that's when we moved over here.
And you are soon kind of really connected. I mean, they notice things, and then you guys notice things, and the two of you get it figured out.
Yeah, pretty much. But again, we were separate at one time. The energy managers were a different group, and they weren't associated with us at all. And I mean, we worked a little bit together, but not like we do now. I mean, they were out figuring out all the different things they did, and then if we were involved, then it would kind of sift down to us, and we would implement or do whatever we needed to do. But we didn't work near as closely as we do now.
Okay.
So
Would they turn in, like you said, reports where they need something fixed? They turn in.
yes, if there's something that they perceive as being a problem area, they would open us a work order up, and
That's the word I was trying to find. Work order.
Yeah, and we would evaluate it, and if there's something wrong, we would fix it, and if there wasn't anything wrong that we saw, we'd get back with them and discuss it with them and try and figure out
what else it could be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when that first started in 2007, I would come in and there would be a card on my thing that's on my computer that says turn off your monitor.
Mm-hmm. That was their job, is to go around and
Now
try and implement as much energy saving policy as possible.
Now I do that faithfully.
Well,
Yes.
see, it worked. So
It works.
but a lot of people, they don't think about it, and if you don't instruct them on those things, then same way with turning the lights out.
Yep.
It's that's something that I think lights probably use the most energy on campus, and so the more we can turn those lights off, the better.
Are there any of the buildings that have the automated ones, for lack of a better word, or that maybe that's what the word is, for the motion sensors?
Yes, motion sensors. Yes, we have a number of them. Noble's one of them that comes to mind, and you're forever hearing about people complaining about having to wave their arms when the light goes out, because you can sit there, and if you're still enough for long enough, it won't sense you being there, and it'll turn the light off, which irritates the heck out of people. But energy savings, you get them where you can.
And you're supposed to stand up every hour anyway.
Yeah, that's good for you. That's right. So, but
well, what other, is it the only one that has the motion? I can't think of.
I can't think of anything that comes to mind just right off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's probably a few others. They implemented that, and then I think determined, well, that's probably not the best idea just because of all the complaints. And most people turn their lights off when they leave anyway, so,
I wondered if they were doing that in the newest buildings that are.
No, I think they moved away from it, honestly. I mean, again, I'm sure there's still some out there that have that feature, but I think it's not what we're shooting for.
We just have the little sign that says, please turn out the lights.
Yeah. And that's a simple thing.
That's a simple fix. We should be able to do it.
Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
But yeah, that's certain things, again, cause irritation.
Well, did you have to deal with that, or did someone else have
that? That was somebody else. I didn't. Again, I'm strictly in the.
You don't deal with the public very often.
Oh, I deal with the public. Well, not as much now, but when I was a technician, I mean, you're dealing with them every day.
Okay.
It's just not that end of it. I mean, that was something that we had no control over, and neither did anybody else really, unless they decide to put a light switch in. But, once it's there, and it works the way it works. So, they probably got a little reminder to wave your arms if the light goes out.
So when you switched from being a technician to a supervisor, when was that roughly?
That was in 2019 is when I took this job. So,
And how different is it from?
well, it's way different in that I don't go out and solve problems anymore. I mean, that's basically what you were, as a problem solver. And now I solve different problems. You know, if there's any issues that need to be decided on, or work schedules, or all the different things that a supervisor is required to do, that's what I do. I do more of the management of the employees rather than the dealing with issues, on campus, unless there's a question as to how to proceed. Then I'll certainly give my 2 cents worth on that. But,
Institutional knowledge.
Pretty much. I mean, it takes a pretty broad knowledge to deal with the problems that pop up, because a lot of times, you don't know the answer, and you may need to research it. And the more institutional knowledge you have, the easier it is to answer questions and make decisions and whatnot. And I've been around longer than anybody, so I've probably been exposed to more things than anybody else. So, I'm doing the best I can. And
Well, do you miss the other part?
sometimes, I mean, I like going out and solving problems and fixing things. But, again, this job has its own challenges, so I enjoy doing those as well. So, and if I need to, I can go out and work, if we're short on somebody. And, I go out all the time, and, we may be having somebody out sick or somebody, I'll fill in for them and do what I need to do. So.
And the hardest problems come to you?
They do, but that's not to say I know the answer to everything, because the technicians I have know a whole lot more than I do since I've been out of the field. It's a forever changing landscape out there, and I can't keep up with it, all the field stuff. I do the best I can, but my guys are pretty knowledgeable, and we keep them trained up, so they're aware of the latest and greatest and how to do stuff that I may not have no clue about. I mean, I may be able to make a decision to help point the way, but I take advice as well as anybody, and so I depend on my guys to give me the scoop and maybe help me make that decision. So we do what we got to do to figure out the problems.
Well, when you think back over your career here, is there a couple of highlights, things that come to mind first?
I don't know how to answer that. I don't know. It's just been a whirlwind of things. Nothing really jumps out at me for the,
Get any like pats on the back from a president or something that says good job, Charles?
Oh, I've had a few, letters of commendation and whatnot. Just,
Okay.
Things that got resolved in a timely fashion and whatnot. But
Well, those are good. Those count.
oh yeah, we take them, but nothing really stands out as, it's kind of, same job, different day, and it's just been an ongoing thing for.
Do you usually get here at 8 to 4:30 now?
No, I get here at 7:30.
Yep.
I work till 4, and I like to get here a little early to, if anything comes in early and got to deal with it, and figure out what to do about it and who to assign and that sort of thing. So, that's, like I say, I like to get a little head start on things. So,
Well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk just about OSU in general. You would have been here when the first plane crash occurred. Do you remember anything about that?
I just was aware of it. I mean, I don't, I'm not a real go to the basketball games or, that sort of thing. So,
Okay.
Again, I was aware and, appreciated the gravity of the situation, but, I didn't have any personal involvement in that. So.
Okay. And then the other thing I was going to ask, and your department might not have anything to do with it either, the bells on the library, are they automated?
Yes, they are. At least last I knew.
So that's not heating and cooling. So
No, we don't deal with it. I'm aware of. Yes, they do have a system up there for doing the bells, and I think there's lights.
I was thinking automation, but not heating and cooling. So scratch.
Yeah,
scratch
wrong
that.
automation department. But yeah.
All right. Well, if you could change anything, what would it be in regards to your work?
If I could change anything, nothing really comes to mind. Everything runs pretty smoothly. We have, again, a pretty good situation where, as far as our department now, if you want to talk about other departments, there's some change that needs to be done there, but we won't go into that.
We won't go into that, no.
So, but no, everything goes smoothly. Again, everyone's really happy and enjoys their job, and there's nothing really that pulls us down as far as that goes.
Does your department have anything to involvement with when we got when the wind farm came online and all that?
No, we have nothing to do with that other than just hearing about it from the energy people. That's just kind of more in their area.
Well, I mean, I didn't know if that's something that came through.
No, in fact, we heard about it after the fact, but that's just a way that they bring energy in, and
fair enough, yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of that stuff we just don't have much interaction with.
Okay. Well, then we've talked about the past, and what do you foresee for the next 5 years?
What do I foresee in the next 5 years?
More technology, I'm sure, but what else?
Yeah, because it's forever changing, and right now we're working hard to keep up. We got behind the curve on one of our systems, and it kind of reached end of life before we were really aware of it, and so it's a operating system for our automation system, and it reached a point where, okay, this is not going to be supported anymore after this time, and that kind of pushed us into needing to, okay, we need to go out and upgrade everything necessary to not get stuck if this thing goes down. Because we've reached a point where if this server fails, about half the campus will be no longer automated from remote location.
Oh, okay.
And so we're in the process right now of going through and upgrading all the local we have network controller in each building. We have individual controls that then talk to a network controller, and that network controller then talks to our server, and then we talk to the server, and what we're in the process of changing out those network controllers to talk to the new system and trying to get it off the old system in order to, again, keep everything functional. And so we're racing the clock to make sure all that stays functional. And the problem is it costs a whole bunch of money to do this, and normally it would be done by the contractor, but we're doing it in-house. Mm-hmm. And so we've had to put aside a fair amount of money over the next 5 years in order to catch all these buildings and upgrade them, because essentially it takes going in and redoing all the programming and making it all the new system. And so that's really probably the biggest thing over the next 5 years, is us finishing that before the server fails and causes us all kinds of grief. So that's one of our main goals right now, is we're working on upgrading the systems to get past that little.
And how many of those would there be, just roughly?
I think there's like 88 or something. It's quite a few, but again, it takes several weeks to do each one, and we're limited by funding. Funding comes in, we get 6 or 7 buildings every fiscal year. So, that's how much it costs. It costs a bunch, and plus the time necessary to do it. So that's kind of what we have on our plate for the next 5 years.
You have a master plan on.
Yes, we're trying to work through them all and get them. But again, funding is our limiting factor, and so we only have so much money per year, so we can only do so many per year.
Well, are you responsible for developing that sort of budget, or is that someone else?
That's actually, I think you interviewed Casey.
Mm-hmm.
She's kind of in charge of that
now, but okay.
Before, I'm not sure who did it, because I wasn't at that level. Okay. I was just a technician, and so who did all the, I think it was probably the same group, but it was there was different people doing it, and so again, my involvement was pretty minimal back when.
Yeah, I would think though, if you're doing the system, who would be figuring out which system to move to and what that dollar.
Well, we're doing that now, but again, back when.
Doing it, yeah.
Well, I mean, we had other managers back when, and they made those decisions.
That out. Okay, I gotcha.
But falls in our lap now. So.
Yeah, bottom dollar there.
Yeah, but again, we're making progress, and eventually it will get done, and then it'll be time to move to a different system.
The oldest one is probably what? I think an old Central, but it's been renovated in the last what?
Yeah, they did that.
20 years.
Yeah, it's probably 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever it was. But again, most of the buildings have a system in them. It's just we're trying to upgrade them to the new what's being supported.
It's kind of like moving from a floppy disk to a memory card. Whatever.
Yeah, a thumb drive or something. Yeah, it's more. Yeah, and it's always changing.
Ain't the words migrate, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So, but everything's changing just on a daily basis, and it is tough to keep up with, but
Do you have an idea of how much longer you will, or do you want to say?
I will what?
Stay in the job. Keep doing.
I haven't decided that.
Okay.
I could
That's
leave
an open-ended
today.
question.
Yes, I do not know when I just decide it's time, I'll retire. But because I enjoy the job, I have no reason to leave at this point. I'd probably retire and get home and decide I needed to be doing something and go find a job that pays a whole bunch less, just because. And I don't want to do that. So.
Well, do you have a favorite spot on campus? Not your office.
I don't know. I like the student union. That's. I don't spend much time over there, but in the years past I have, and that was another renovation they did that changed it all together. Were you here before they remodeled it?
96. I can remember them adding on the atrium part.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, they went in and they remodeled it all, and I don't remember how long it's been because all the years just blend together.
They do, don't they?
But they made it a lot nicer.
Well, when you were in college, was the bowling alley still in the
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we've heard stories about the bowling.
Yeah,
alley.
well, that's why I say it was. Even back then, I enjoyed the student union just because it was a place to go do things, and they had different activities, and
And it had a cafeteria too, I want to assume.
Well, they had places to eat.
Not like the food court.
It's not like it is now at all. It was a lot more. There's maybe 2 or 3 places, maybe at the most. But yeah, it was more like the old way it was, kind of like at Bennett. You had a cafeteria. Well, they kind of had that back when, and now it's all fast food joints. So, it's evolved. It is.
They evolved in the wrong direction, though, huh?
Some might think so, yeah. But oh well. We don't make those decisions.
We don't, do we? No. Now, we've covered all of my questions. Is there anything I haven't known to ask that we should cover?
Well, I don't know. That seems like we've talked about a lot.
Thermal versus steam. I don't know enough about that either.
Yeah.
I know that's something that some buildings are thermal, right, on campus?
Well, you say thermal.
Ground heat.
There are some ground source heat pumps out there.
Is that not thermal?
Well, I just wouldn't use that term myself,
Okay.
But yes, there are some of this. I'm trying to think if there's any big buildings. Most of them are smaller outlying buildings.
Okay.
They tend to do that on the smaller buildings. And at one time, there's some of the nation's experts on such things, working here as professors. So, I think they had a little influence on what things happened, But again, that's an area that we don't deal with. So
you don't have to automate, or you don't work with those systems.
No, other than if I say that, I can think of one building that we have controls overlaid that stuff, so it kind of mixes together, and we have to deal with both sides of it a little bit, But generally, that's not the case. Most of the buildings are either steam or chill water, and so. But that would mostly fall under the other HVAC department,
Okay, for someone who's going to be listening to this down the road, what would you want them to know about the work you do?
Well, we're the people you call when it gets cold or hot, and we're gonna fix you up if there's any way to possibly do it.
Like the Ghostbusters, who's going to call? Huh?
That's it. We're the people who will be on the spot when there's a complaint. Most of what we do is behind the scenes, so nobody even knows we're doing it. So, that's an area where people it's hard to compliment you when you don't even know what's happening. Again, because we're usually in a mechanical room rather than, I mean, we'll go talk to people, you know, and say, oh, you're cold, okay, we'll see if we can fix it, and then they won't see us again because we go where we need to go to fix it. And so we probably don't get a lot of the recognition, you know, we might get otherwise, but that's okay, you know, we don't mind that.
Do you feel appreciated most days?
Yeah. I think people in the know appreciate us.
I appreciate you.
Well, again, we're going to be the ones that fix you if you're cold or hot. So.
Well, and that's not just faculty and staff; that's students.
That's everybody.
Too.
That's the whole
learning
campus.
environment. Yeah.
So, you know, we do the best we can. We try and keep everyone at least comfortable to finish that final or whatever.
And save the university money, I guess.
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
Big part of it. Yeah.
And so I think we've done a pretty good job in that area. So.
Well, looking back, would you do it all over again?
Absolutely.
Any regrets from coming back?
No, I've enjoyed working here my whole life. It's if I didn't, I would have left town and gone somewhere else and done something else. But you know, it's just been a really satisfying job. Again, very technical, but if that interests you, then you know that works out well.
Keeps your mind busy, doesn't it?
It does. You don't get bored. So.
What do you do to relax?
Well, I hunt. I ride motorcycles.
Hmm.
I got a dog and a cat that I hang out with. And,
They count.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got one of those at 16 and a half.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's
It's been a long time.
it's been a long time. So
Yeah,
that's good.
very long. All right, then my last question is, how do you want people to remember Charles Bradley?
Perhaps as somebody who tried to do his job the best he could, and hopefully did it in a way that people could respect, and do it in a way that I don't offend anybody too badly. But
Well, I'd say you've accomplished that, or you wouldn't still be sitting here, right?
I'd say that's probably right. Yeah. So again, that's what I've shot for. I think I've done a fairly good job. My employees don't hate me, so that's a good sign. I try and, you know, in this job, be the best boss I can. So just hopefully people don't have poor thoughts of me in the future.
Just from this, I don't think they will. So thank you very much for sharing today. It's been great.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.